Good afternoon, everyone. Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to this Wednesday, April 26th meeting of the Tallahassee City Commission. For those who are willing and able, I invite you to stand for the invocation, followed by the Pledge of Allegiance.
Almighty God, thank you for the citizens here this evening and the homes they represent. Thank you for the leaders of Tallahassee and their dedication to have a positive impact on the quality of life for our entire community. Help us today and always to seek your guidance and will as we serve our citizens. In your name we pray, amen.
Amen.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Please be seated. City Manager, are there any agenda modifications?
Yes, sir. We had an addition, item 5.01.
All right. Great, Commissioners. We are will now receive a presentation before. Yeah,
yes.
We'll receive a presentation before we get too deep into our agenda from the Office of Economic Vitality. Mr. Ben Pingree.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just give me a moment here quickly. Yes, please.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, Commissioners, Mr. City Manager, appointed officials. Always happy to share some good news. Ben Pingree, Director of Place. Of course, one of our offices is the Office of Economic Vitality, now just over a year moving strong under the leadership of Al Latimer, our Director. There's a number of new initiatives that we have. One of them I'm going to highlight just briefly for you tonight, and that is our quarterly economic indicator reports. But first, I need to brag on us just a little bit, as that is part of the job which we do as we sell the business community, both here locally, across the state, and across the nation, if not the world. We are proud, as our collateral, which is shown up on the screen, to highlight we are the 11th most educated city in the country, a top 50 city for entrepreneurs, top 25 city for global innovation, and remarkably short commute times with a wonderful quality of life. This is on the screen what you have actually before you. These are the metrics that we gauge routinely, week in, week out, and we put together in this quarterly report for you. And I wanted to call out just a few of them to highlight. And I'm looking specifically at the year-over-year numbers in terms of employment, so I'll just rattle through these real quick, but I think they're worthy of some significant pausing and highlighting. Employment up 3.5% year over year within our MSA. Taxable sales up 4.4%. New single-family construction permits up 18.8% year over year. Median single-family home sales price up 5.6%. And passengers at the Tallahassee International Airport up 5% year over year. Commissioners, what you'll see in this documentation is evidence of a strong and growing, stable, sustainably growing economy. But whatever the news may be over time, we are happy to bring it forward and report it to you. We just take a moment to highlight and champion the good news that we have at this particular juncture. Of course, all of this information and more is available at oevforbusiness.org. And you see that on the screen before you. And again, your team at Place is happy to serve, answer any questions, and thank you for your consideration of this latest quarterly report.
Right, thank you very much. Just a quick question on, so first off, these numbers are really good, and obviously we hedge taking too much credit. These things go back and forth, but I do wonder, are there any economic indicators that we pay attention to that are early signs either of strong performance later or negative? I'll give you one example. I understand that it's quite possible that the state might use trash tonnage as a way of predicting whether things are on an up or down swing. I just wonder whether or not, and it makes sense. If folks are consuming, their trash tonnage might be higher. If
There
not,
are
less.
actually the ones that we called out for you, or ones that we pay close attention to. We'll always look at, for example, the employment number. That's a go-to industry best practice. Taxable sales are an additional indicator. Honestly, the total valuation, estimated valuation within a marketplace, whether that's within the city of Tallahassee or within Leon County or our MSA, that's data that is usually an indicator of performance or growth over time. And the permits, remarkably, are usually utilized by local governments as an indicator of getting ahead of where the market may be going. So we don't rest on these laurels, Mr. Mayor, but we do appreciate when the data reveals sustainable growth.
Thank you. And then probably not to show up necessarily in one of these documents, but maybe one thing that might be interesting to know would be how many of our customers might be late paying utilities. That might be one way, at least locally, of getting assessment of that and sort of the change that happens within that.
Yes, sir. Sure. Absolutely. We'll look at that.
Thank you very much. Commissioners, any other questions or comments on this? If not, thank you very much for your presentation. Commissioners, we're now at the point in the meeting where we will take speakers who are here to speak on items that are agended. If you're here to talk about an item that is not actually on the action agenda, there's another spot in the program where we'll hear from you. But now, Treasurer Clerk, are there any speakers for items on the agenda?
Yes, Mayor, there are. We have a number of speakers tonight. The first will be Jim Croteau. I'll ask him and each of our speakers if they will provide their name and address. We would appreciate that. And each speaker will have 3 minutes for his or her remarks. There's a light just to the left of where you're standing that will be green and eventually turn red, but I will also let you know when those 3 minutes have expired. Mr. Croteau was on item 1303, the receipt of offers to purchase 600 North Monroe Street. And he'll begin, and then he'll be followed by Darrell Worrell. Mr. Croteau.
Thank you. Jim Croteau, 1421 Brandon Hill Drive. I'm currently the chair of Envision Credit Union Volunteer Board of Directors and speaking on behalf of the credit union. Mr. Mayor, City Commissioners, City Manager, thank you for the opportunity to speak. The issue before you about the sale of this particular city-owned parcel, I believe, is not about how much money you can get for that parcel. I believe the issue is, can this piece of property be leveraged to maximize the benefit for the city and the citizens in the community? Selling to a nonprofit credit union that provides over $200,000 a year back to the community, sponsoring teachers, students, schools, and social service organizations, I think is a big plus to add to your consideration. Selling to a credit union that owns a particular piece of property that we have an offer to sell that will add $27 million to the tax roll and fit the strategic plan for downtown that the city has, we think is a bigger plus. That's an advantage here as well. And also selling to a credit union that has a philosophical point of view, evidenced by the Frenchtown Financial Services Center that will invest over $100,000 this year, along with FSU, to build up the citizens' opportunity to be served and to be educated, and keeping a facility nearby that will allow us to have offices to support that Frenchtown Financial Service Center, we think is another big, big plus to the community. So all in all, we believe that selling to Envision will make a difference in the financial lives of people as well as benefit the city as a whole, and no other buyer that has appeared can offer as much as we do. We do encourage the city to quickly approve, the commission to quickly approve the city manager's ability to negotiate the sale of this property so we can move quickly to provide our services in a continuous manner, but also to move forward with this good project that we have following us. Thank you.
Thank you. Next speaker.
Next speaker is Darrell Worrell, and then Chuck Howell.
Good afternoon, and thank you for the opportunity to speak with you. As Jim said, he's the chairman of our board of directors for Envision Credit Union. I'm the president and CEO, and Envision Credit Union has been a part of the fabric in this community since 1954. We've been on our current location at 440 North Monroe Street since 1990, and we're very excited about what the future for both the downtown and the midtown area holds. And we've been pretty picky about who and where we would sell this piece of property to. We've got a great opportunity, and as Jim said, the opportunity is for us to work collaboratively together to impact the city of Tallahassee. Envision Credit Union must maintain a downtown presence. We've got a large branch network there, as well as our administrative offices, and it's critical that we maintain a downtown presence. We can't sell our property at 440 North Monroe without another close by piece of property. So the city property makes perfect sense to us. As I said, we're excited about the potential for both areas. I'm going to, as Jim said, it will increase the taxable value of these two properties up to $30 million. So we're excited about that. I would urge the commission to make a decision to go ahead and negotiate. Time will be of the essence, as we've got to begin a construction planning and construction process so that we do not have any downtime on serving our membership. And we are willing to increase our offer. Our original offer's at $750,000, and if it will assist the commission in making the decision quickly, we would increase that offer to $800,000. So we'd ask you and urge you to do that. I'd like to introduce Chuck Howell, who's with Charles Street Investment Partners, and he can go through the other piece to this puzzle for us.
Chuck, did you complete a form?
He is. He's the next speaker, Mayor.
Great.
So he's right on track. And then the following speaker would be Muntaki Akbar on a different item.
That's Envision's. 440 North. That's it. Gotta go to that one. That's it. That's it. Okay. All right. Should be going up. My name's Chuck Howell. I'm from Denver, Colorado. I'm a native Tallahassee, though. Spent 30 years here. Been gone for about 2 years. I'm with Charles Street Investment Partners, and we are looking to redevelop the Envision Credit Union site. We're looking at 250 apartments, professional residential units, plus about 10,000 square feet of retail on that first floor. One of the things that we feel really strongly about is this could be a real transformative project for that particular area of town. There's about 40,000 people that work in the downtown area that are professionals with limited to no kind of upscale, rental options available. There's a few in the condos, but as far as true apartment living goes, there's not any really good options. So we believe that this will fit that group of people very well. Another thing too that I've spoken about at different times throughout my career is the retention of college students in Tallahassee, whether it's Florida State, FAMU, TCC. And right now we retain about 27% of those people, but only about 12% of them are non-native. And we believe that a vibrant downtown living situation would help those people to stay after they've graduated. 90% of those that graduate stay in the place that they're living after their third year. So we think it would be an opportunity for Tallahassee to retain some of those talented individuals. Also, other than just millennials and young people, you're going to have even empty nesters, downtown workforce, corporate tenants are all going to be interested in living in a project like this. Some of the pictures that kind of show a little bit about what the project would look like, high-end amenities, finishes on insides of the units. We're very aware of what's going on with the Governor's Walk project. It's something that we're really excited about. We really want to be a part of it. As you can see on the left picture there, Adams Street, beautiful street, canopy trees, so on and so forth. With the addition of kind of protected bikeways, oversized walkways, we can really create connectivity between Midtown, Governor's Mansion, and the downtown area. Also, we would want to keep the active look and keep Adams Street active, along with a residential feel on that side of the particular project, so that the brownstone look, but then also have an entrance into our apartments where our offices and clubhouse and amenities are located. So we'd be able to keep a real residential feel along Adams Street, which we know is going to be important. Certainly $700,000 annually of future tax revenues for this, and that continues to grow. But what I think is the most important thing for the city is once we prove out that the rents for the commercial and the apartments are viable, there's going to be other developers that are going to want to come in and continue to invest in downtown. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Chair.
Very good.
Commissioner Ziffer?
I have a quick question, either Jim or the drive-through site, as it sits now, has a considerable amount of green space. In fact, it's one of the few green spaces we have from basically Park Avenue downtown, as far north as I can remember. Are you planning on keeping much of that green, or do you have an idea of what that might look like? Could you, please?
Designed for this.
I don't think that's it.
That's it. Yeah, apologize that again, initial rendering, if you would orientate it toward the dark, heavy black lines.
Yes.
That road right there is Monroe Street.
Yes.
So direct opposite is Adams Street, and then Georgia Street here at the bottom of the page here. What you see is we would remove the existing drive-through. We would move the branch building up close to, as close as possible on Monroe Street. And if you recall now, there's just some brush pines and a large berm, about a 6-foot high berm. That would go away, and that effectively would be where the branch would sit. Also, this is in the shape of an L. One of the things that Envision has done since really for at least the last 10 or so years is we provide a lot of meeting space downtown for the Tallahassee Fraud Commission, where police officers and sheriff's deputies meet with business owners and banks and credit unions and others to work on crime. We also, once a month, at no charge, lease out our space to groups such as the retired educators of Leon and McCullough County. So what you see here is we want to incorporate some community room space in this as well that would be free of charge to education-based and other areas that we support. The little dots around there, there's 7 or 8. Those are the existing oak trees, and they would stay. So a little bit of meandering walk through there trying to get as much parking as we can where the existing pavement is, but keeping as much of the green space, effectively all of it.
Okay, thank you.
Right.
Thank you.
Commissioner Miller.
You might as well stay up here because I have a question too. My interest is on Adams Street because you all, as a group, have presented 2 different properties on Adams. So what you do is going to have a big impact on the ultimate vision of Adams. And my whole position has always been that it looked fine to me as it was. So I'm hoping that you're going to continue the space between the sidewalk and the street, the trees that are there. So is that
Absolutely.
your plan?
Both of our properties would incorporate at least what we have today.
All right, good.
At least what we have today.
Thank you.
Other questions of the speaker? Seeing none, next speaker, please. I hope you froze the time during the
Thank you.
Q&A.
Absolutely did.
Great.
Yes, sir. Before Mr. Akbar comes, let me ask Matt McAfee, who would be the final speaker on this particular item. That way you'll have all the speakers on 1303, and then Mr. Akbar will begin item 1304, and that will, we'll have plenty of time for those speakers as well.
Thank you very much, Commissioners. I've been involved in this 600 North Monroe Street property for quite a few years now. I've been interested in the purchase of it since 2014. I've submitted several offers through the different brokers that you guys have hired to sell the property. I also was the other party that offered the $750,000 unsolicited to the city 3 days prior to the offer that the credit union also made. I'm very willing to also go up on price just like they would. And I would actually just urge the commission to do an RFP if you're going to put it out for sale, or if you're going to have it out there, give the public and other developers an opportunity. My concept plan has been submitted to the commission before. It's been on the agenda items. I've spent several $1,000s with architects and engineers to ensure that this project would be a really good fit. Some of you may remember the project from last year or not, but the goal here would be to create a space where people can actually come and enjoy the beautiful oak trees that are on site, utilize the site, the contours and the topography, utilize the building that's there, do some green spaces on the roof, kind of make it a really nice downtown, midtown connector. And Adams Street corridor for pedestrian traffic would be great as well. But, you know, instead of doing a commercial type of a venture here, I'd like to see a mixed-use retail, restaurants, some nice dining at the end of the day, a good place for people to unwind. And we've got some really good conceptual drawings that I know you guys are familiar with. But I'd just like to say that I'm still very interested in developing this property. I'd like to see it go in a direction where there are multiple jobs. There is a good tax base coming off of the property, so that way the city has some income there. And of course, parking would be a big boost in that area, since there's not really a lot of parking revenues generated in that area. But I think we could probably allow for that as well. But essentially, I want to make sure that you guys are fully aware that we'd love to see the site developed in a different manner, and create a lot of jobs there and create a lot of people coming there. That helps create more people in the downtown corridor and connecting to the midtown corridor as well. So I apologize for not having my presentation, but I knew you guys were familiar with it, so I'd like to just say thank you very much for your time. If you have any other questions, I'd be happy to answer them.
Commissioner Richardson.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Whatever happened to your proposal? I remember I was relatively new to the commission when
Yes,
you
sir.
came before us initially, and you made the presentation. I was impressed by what you had proposed, and then things just kind of disappeared.
The offer was contingent upon commission approval, and it was not approved at the time based on, if I can remember correctly, there wanted to be some future discussion for the potential of this property, whichever direction that heads. And it's kind of been in a stale mode for a few years now. Let's call it 2 years. But I spent probably somewhere in the neighborhood of $20,000 with my engineer and my architects to do the conceptual studies to prove to you guys that, you know, we're willing to develop in this property and create something very unique for Tallahassee that I don't see in the downtown corridor, the midtown corridor. The size of this property is a perfect, kind of a perfect layout for quite a few people to shop there, eat there, just enjoy themselves. And again, there's 5 or 6 really beautiful patriarch oak trees we'd like to just, you know, have out there. And I think Tallahassee's pretty known for their beautiful oaks, so I'd like to see that. But essentially what happened was it was kind of put into some special discussion groups, I believe, and just kind of put on the back burner. The listing agent for the property has still kept in touch with the real estate staff, and so have we. I've just kind of stayed on top of it just to let everyone know, hey, we're still interested. I've got some key properties in Midtown and downtown that we're working on some really great developments as well, but I'd like to see more, you know, restaurants and more retail activity in this area, downtown, Midtown, and this connection point. And I think it's a pretty unique property that could be utilized very well with this kind of a development where, you know, we're working with everything that's there. So
Okay.
Great.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Seeing none, thank you. Next speaker.
thank you, Mayor.
The next speaker is Mutaki Akbar. He'll be followed by Keith Bowers. I believe the remainder of our speakers in this portion are all on item 1304.
Good afternoon, Commissioner, City Manager. Again, my name is Mutaki Akbar. I live 619 North Copeland Street in the Frenchtown area. We've been having a lot of discussions over the last month or so in regards to this project. And at this point, I am in agreement with the city selling that portion of the land to Landmark Properties. And the reason why I am in agreement with it at this point is because they've come up with a lot of what we're calling concessions or agreements, some that I think are key, and I think that the city is going to have to push them on, not push them on, but just make sure that they follow through, and I have no doubt that they will. First being that their commitment to providing 7.5% of the contracts to minority businesses. My understanding is that yesterday they've committed to doing that, and I know that Darryl Jones and several of the other MBE staff are also committed to monitoring that and make sure that that 7.5% of the contracts goes to minority businesses. When I did the math for that, that can amount to about $4.2 million going to minority contractors here in Tallahassee. And I think that's very major, and I think that's very key for this development coming. I think it's the memorial that they've committed to, and also $50,000 that they committed to the memorial. The non-residential space that is also would be at a lower market rate than any other retail space or that any other contractor would be able to do. And also the plaza that would allow for entrepreneurs to do pop-up space. And several other agreements that are in place, but because of those key things, especially the minority contracts, I am in agreement with the city selling that land, because otherwise we would not be able to get those agreements in place. So that's the developer has made those commitments, and and we appreciate that. Now it's time for the city to make some commitments. The city commission to make some commitments. What we're asking for is the $485,000 not go to a deficiency fund, but is earmarked specifically for Frenchtown, for infrastructure, for redevelopment, but not just going to any kind of fund that does not come specifically to Frenchtown. So what I ask that when you do make that vote, make the vote not to go to the deficiency fund, but earmarked specifically for Frenchtown. Also, what the city can do, or what you all can do at this point, is vote on some type of overlay, placemaking, something for the future. We've been calling it the Frenchtown 50, but that will stop these type of incidents from happening in the future, as far as the community being involved up front before any developers or anybody else come and try to do anything. At least we can be in place to say where we want big buildings, where we want homes, where we want retail, and we'll be able to put that into place. So So at this point, I think as far as the city goes, you all can make the commitment to put that $485,000 somewhere and also make plans for the future as far as the Frenchtown 50. Thank you.
Great. Thank you very much. Next speaker.
Next is Keith Bowers. He will be followed by Delatry Hollinger.
Good afternoon, Mr. Mayor and Commissioners. My name is Keith Bowers. My address is 1548 Marion Avenue. Today I stand in support of the sale of the property for landmark development as a representative of the Bethel Missionary Baptist Church's Economic Development Ministry. We think this developer has worked earnestly with the community and other stakeholders in hearing and addressing the concerns, and they've made concessions and negotiated concessions. As the previous speaker said, those concessions primarily dealt with the access to opportunities for small minority and women-owned businesses, and working with Darrell Jones and the Department of Economic Vitality, the Office of Economic Vitality, to make sure that those historically underserved businesses have opportunity to participate in this project. Also of note is the fact that the developer has heard the concerns about the scale, the size and scale of this, and they have actually made concessions to reduce the height that would actually complement some other buildings that exist in Frenchtown. Again, the set aside, the agreement to set aside retail space, because that's one of the things that we have pushed for, is more vibrant, robust retail space that is affordable for small businesses and entrepreneurs. So the idea of having pop-up stores and kiosks along that corridor just complements the vision that many of the stakeholders have for Frenchtown. So for those reasons, we stand in support of the sale of the property to the developer. Thank you.
Thank you, Keith. Next speaker.
Delatry Hollinger, and then Jim Bellamy.
Good afternoon, Mr. Mayor and Commissioners. I thank you for this opportunity. I am speaking to you as Executive Director of the National Association for the Preservation of African American History and Culture, but most importantly, as a fifth-generation resident of this community, with the first 4 of those generations coming from a now demolished Frenchtown house at 430 West Virginia Street. My great-great-grandmother's estate still owns this piece of land. It's actually located right at the back of the garage on Virginia Street for the Renaissance Center. My great-grand-aunt, Mrs. Clyde Isler Eaton, who lived in that house, was a Leon County school principal, teaching in the same room alongside Mrs. Madeline Taylor Cassanius, the mother of legendary Leon County educator Aquilina Howell. My grandmother, Mrs. Mercedes Williams, who also lived there, was a part of the first group of African American nurses to integrate Tallahassee Memorial Hospital in 1971 upon the closing of the FAMU Hospital. It is in that context, Commissioners, that I respectfully request that you do not sell this historic and sacred piece of property abutting North Macomb Street. As Commissioner Maddox and several others have stated, there were promises made to the community and broken. Majority of the residents did not learn of this proposal until 22 days before it was to be voted on by this body. Only 5 pieces of property in the Frenchtown neighborhood have officially been deemed historic, including the Taylor House, the Alvin Oliver Getty Store, the Working Women's Band Club, Ashmore's Drugs, and Tooks Hotel. Particularly alarming is the fact that there has never been an official declaration or zoning overlay which protected the historic structures that once consumed the area. Commissioners, we're losing our identity as a neighborhood. Frenchtown is a special and sacred place. It was said at the March meeting that no area of Tallahassee looks as it did 50 or 60 or 70 years ago. This statement is false, but there is some truth to it. And that is that no African American section of Tallahassee looks as it did 50 years ago. Frenchtown has been ravaged by encroachment and gentrification, ripe with an incorrect notion that sustainable growth and positive development and redevelopment of the area had or has to come with destruction. I do not believe this. In fact, Commissioners, I believe wholeheartedly that we can positively integrate urban infill and historic preservation as one. But this has not been done. Frenchtown is only a shell of its former self, but we can do so much better together. This community has been adamantly opposed to this development from the very beginning. It is not wanted, and it has not been embraced by the majority of the citizenry. I and the organization I represent strongly oppose it, though I feel we can disagree without being disagreeable. I have to applaud the developer and Attorney Gadelia, who have made several compromises and concessions and have met with certain community leaders.
Excuse me, that's 3 minutes.
Mr.
Thank
Mayor,
you, Chair.
if
If
I may.
you could wrap it up, thank you.
Yes, sir. It is my hope, Commissioners, that you will vote against the sale of this land so that we can go back to the drawing board as a collective unit and seek out a development that the entire community can truly be proud of. Please do not force this down our throats. Allow us a reasonable amount of time to have a real say-so in what is happening. I thank you for this opportunity.
Thank you. Next speaker?
Next speaker is Jim Bellamy. He'll be followed by Joe Berg, and Mr. Berg will be the last of the speakers for this portion of our meeting.
Good afternoon, Commissioners.
Afternoon.
Mr. City Administrator. My name is Jim Bellamy. I live at 532 West Georgia Street. Born and raised there. Been there most of my life. But anyway, a lot of the comments that I had to say have been said pretty much already by Mr. Akbar and some of the other speakers. But I did want to say a couple of things. My major concern with this all along has been the process. How we did it was really the problem. People were not involved. People were not asked for anything. It was just done. And I don't know how you would react, but I know that people usually don't take well to things that's done that way. And hopefully, what we can do in the future, that's why we're talking about doing an overlay process and the Frenchtown 50 to be able to plan ahead of time so that we'll know when developers come, we'll know what the people want, we'll know what can go where, and all of that kind of information will be available to us. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to kind of give back the rest of my time and ask Joe Bird to come up and explain a little bit about the Frenchtown 50 so that you all understand a little bit better. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And Mr. Berg is the next speaker.
Thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, Mr. Chair, a procedural request, if I may. I've been selected by the Preservation Coalition to make a presentation on behalf of many who don't have a chance to speak, but to articulate a lot of the community's agreed upon views on this complex issue. So if it's okay with you, under Rule 108, if I could go over the 3-minute period and the community would feel heard.
Yeah, we'll go for 5 minutes, and then if you
Okay.
just send me a note on how many remaining speakers. Go ahead.
Will do.
I'll just step through very quickly. I've been asked to articulate what the community is opposed to for the RFP, even though this is lava lamping and it's even changed since yesterday. Obviously, this is a hot tamale, but we think that their staff and the community are actually very close. We're just asking you to add a couple of things to what they're requesting. On the no vote, we ask you to remove the parcel from surplus and to hold it for the future, a vision that can be developed through this placemaking process. The process was flawed. This has been a learning process for all, but the community was not involved at the beginning. We also feel that since this was purchased as a community asset, its full potential is not being met with this proposal. It's also a gateway to Frenchtown, and in the master planning process, this could be very critical to creating a commercial center where visitors can come as a destination and Frenchtown residents and business owners can benefit. It's been said that this cannot be developed alone if it doesn't go through with this sale because of parking and stormwater requirements, but we disagree. Parking at the Renaissance Center was built over capacity years ago when this parcel was bought for development. We would need to be able to figure out how to get people across Macomb Street, but we're going to have to do that anyway, whatever gets built there, and that would be part of the master planning process. New interest has also come forward since the community lodged its protest. Last month, a massive and revered local developer has expressed interest in doing feasibility for this in other areas, and what comes out of the master planning process is would give them assurances going forward. This is also a sketch that was done by DesignWorks a couple of years ago showing this was drawn up for the Heritage Hub of what can go there. And there's feasibility to enclose both these buildings, make it a two-floor or otherwise indoor open-air market where for the cost of inventory and a month's rent, you're in business. And that would surely be a destination for lunchtime and visitors around the area. If the property sells, we're asking that $485,000 be invested back into Frenchtown, and that minority contracting, which I believe Mr. Akbar addressed, has been worked out. So now, to be clear, the community is not against growth. We just want to build it better. No one is against growth. No one here has said no growth. So how did we get here? 60,000 neighbors will be coming over the next 30 years to Tallahassee. We're going to have to figure out where to stack them. However, this is the current CU45 zoning. You can see Frenchtown in the top there. Everything yellow is CU45. It's the zoning for this student housing. I think it's generally agreed that 20 years ago the city was painting with a broad brush anticipating future growth and to come back and to be more specific with zoning, but that's not allowed to happen. We cannot downzone. The law has changed. Here you can see Frenchtown, and I will do a quick fly around to show this is the parcel, and this is what this particular development would welcome, and this is what the future of Frenchtown looks like under this zoning. You really can't find Frenchtown there. As I said, we can't downzone around 95, 97 when this comprehensive plan and the broad brush was being applied in zoning. The Burt-Harris Act was passed by the state of Florida, which requires if you're going to downzone to compensate landowners. So we have to figure this out for Frenchtown so that it can apply to everyone. There are locations on Pensacola Street, a lot of which is reserved residential preservation, which is where these sort of complexes belong. Quickly is this gentrification. This happens through displacement. This is a property in College Town. You can see the buildings in the background. In 13 years, the property taxes have gone up 650%. This is Ms. Roberts' house right across the street from this development. And if she does not sell her property or build massively, perhaps beyond her capacity, it's going to equal displacement. She's going to basically be paying a fee to live on her own property. What happens is spillover. You can see on the bottom right, there's the assessed value, the market value on top. That's how our taxes are developed. Once this is built, the market value far exceeds the assessed value. If she does not have an ability to pay that increase in property taxes, she's got to move. If she wanted to, neighbors wanted to do a medium growth, no bank would fund it, because once this goes up again, the market value far exceeds with their investment. The property taxes are preventing bottom-up growth. You can't go 18 and a 45. We're pre-gentrification. By the indices from Harvard, we're about a couple of years away from mid-level gentrification. And what else can we do? This is as proposed, the commission, staff, and community. This is what the community would like to see. That spot in the middle is where we decide processes with the community, with the commission, and that's where we develop this vision. This is master planning.
Mayor, that's 5 minutes, just to let you know.
Great. If you could begin to wrap up.
Yes, sir. I'm almost done. I'm moving quick. This is a master plan, but this is what we're asking for. Form-based code or an overlay on the left is what zoning is. On the right is how you develop the city. You say, these are the parcels. You talk to everyone. Everyone has a plan for their future, and everyone's value goes up. This is what's been done in Sarasota, Bradenton, Bellevue. It's been done more than 650 times in the past year alone in cities. This is standardly adopted. We just haven't done it in Tallahassee. Vision, master plan, form-based code. The staff is recommending a placemaking process. We're asking that you add full participation in the process, enforcement through form-based code, and a pause of master overdevelopment in a way that will not stop any plans from within the community in the meantime. Again, if we don't figure it out, we're just going to keep having this problem over and over again. And we can't have what we don't ask for. There's outside developers, foundations. $150 million from Kresge Foundation went to Detroit when they developed this plan. Developers want assurances that what they're investing in are protected. And we don't need density before retail. Midtown has low density, but it's a destination. We can do all these things, we just have to decide to do it. So with that, I'll just say, please, I'll hand out a paperwork sheet for you for later. Please add the requirement to staff directions that this include form-based regulatory enforceable code so that the community doesn't go through this again as we did in 2003 and was never adopted.
Great.
Thank you.
Thank you. Next speaker.
That's the last speaker, Mayor. We have speakers for the public hearing and unagended, but no more at this time.
Okay, great. Thank you very much, Commissioner. Thank you to all the speakers who came this evening. Commissioners, we're now on to appearances by City Commission boards. The acceptance of the 2016 Comprehensive Annual Financial Report, City Auditor, and Chairman of the Audit Committee, Mr. Paul Brown.
Good afternoon, Mayor and Commissioners. Under the leadership of Manager Fernandez and very hard work by the Financial Services Division of the city, which is managed by Patrick Twyman, the city has just completed its fiscal year 2016 Comprehensive Annual Financial Report, or CAFR. And included in that report is the city's financial statements. Those statements have been audited by two local CPA firms, Thomas Howell and Ferguson and LawRed, Cronin and Monroe. And here to present the results of the report and the audit for your acceptance is the chair of the city's audit committee, Mr. Paul Brown. And as Paul comes forward, I want to acknowledge him for his multiple years of significant service to the city, the last several years as chairman of the audit committee. I also want to recognize the two other committee members, Pam Butler and Matt Hansard, for their service to the city on this committee. So, Paul.
Thank you, Bert. Mr. Mayor, Commissioners, and Mr. Manager, I'm here on behalf of the City of Tallahassee Audit Committee to present the Comprehensive Annual Financial Report to you. I wanted to point out the hard work that Patrick Twyman and Rita Stevens and their staff did, and I would like for Patrick and anyone in his staff to please stand. Patrick is here. Thank you. And I'd also want to point out the cohesive work between the city staff and the external audit firms. They do a great job. They meet very often during the course of the work. I've been part of those meetings since September, meeting just about once a month with both groups, going over the annual financial audit as it's occurring. I want to note, too, that the City of Tallahassee, the Audit Committee of the City of Tallahassee met several weeks ago with representatives of both the external auditing firms. It was mentioned of Thomas Howell Ferguson and LawRed, Cronin and Monroe, and the city's accounting services audit staff and the city's internal audit staff to consider the comprehensive annual financial report. The joint external firms issued an unmodified opinion on the financial statements of the governmental activities, the business type activities in each major fund, and the aggregate discretely presented component unit of the city. An unmodified report is the most favorable opinion that can be issued. So that's very important. In addition, the auditors issued an unmodified report on the major federal and state project grant funds. The audit did note a material weakness and significant deficiency in internal control over the federal and state major program projects. The material weakness was due to a number of corrections that had to be made in the schedule of expenditures and federal awards, and there was also an issue on some uncompleted assessment forms. The audit committee met with staff and met with the external auditors. We reviewed the city's response to those issues, and we were in agreement with the city's response and feel comfortable with the city's response. And as a result, I'm here on behalf of the City of Tallahassee Audit Committee to present this to you for your approval.
Any questions, Commissioners?
Thank you for your work. Thank you. I appreciate it.
Thank you, and I'd like to move approval.
There's a motion and a second for approval of the audit report. Thank you again to the committee and obviously to the staff. And Mr. Brown, thank you for your leadership as well. All those in favor of the motion, let it be known by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed, no. Motion passes unanimously. Commissioner Ziffer.
Just a quick comment. Yours is the one presentation. When it's really short, that's great news. So thank you for making a short report.
Move consent, Mr. Mayor.
Second. Commissioners, there's a motion and a second to approve all consent items. All those in favor, let it be known by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed, no. Motion passes unanimously. Commissioners, we're now on to city commission items, and there is a item on the appointment for the Leon County Minority Women Small Business Enterprise Citizens Advisory Committee. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Second.
There's a motion and a second to approve. All those in favor, let it be known by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, no. Motion passes unanimously. Commissioners, we're now at the point of policy formation and direction. First item, 13.01, City Manager.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Item 13.01. This item requests your approval to execute a contract for closed-circuit television pipe inspection and data recording services for storm drain pipe. During last year's budget process, you established public infrastructure as a high priority. Inspection and assessment of our storm drain pipe is an important component to ensure effective operation and cost-efficient maintenance of our drainage systems. Jody Cahoon is here to provide a brief description of our inspection and maintenance program and answer any questions that you may have.
Thank you, Mr. Manager. Mayor, Commissioners, I'll be brief with this presentation. You may recall in our April workshop that we talked about public infrastructure, and one of the main topics of that discussion was pavement management and street preservation. This is a slide that we showed, and the takeaway from this slide is that we assessed our streets, came up with an index, and if we took action early, we could reduce our costs using preservation measures as opposed to higher cost reconstructive measures. In essence, stitch in time saves 9. One of the first steps in that process is doing pavement assessment, and we talked about a piece of equipment that we used, an RST, a road surface tester. Well, we employ a similar process with our drainage pipes. This is our chariot, if you will. We can't necessarily get the trucks into the pipes to take video cameras, so what we use is robotic cameras. We insert it into our storm drain systems. To give you a perspective, this is a 2-foot opening, and we're getting ready to send a robot through a 15-inch pipe. Now, these processes then send information to a trailer where we have a trained and certified technician that takes data, but this is more than just closed-circuit TV that we're getting. We're getting a lot of pipe metrics. We use a system called POSSUM, which is Pipe Observation and System Management. So we can measure cracks, we can look at deflections, vertical, horizontally, pipe deflections, and we gather a bunch of data and we record this data for each and every segment of our pipes. This gives you an example of a metal pipe that we've done an assessment on. You can see in the upper left, this pipe is rusted and corroded out on the bottom. It's shortly away from failure. And on the right, where we come in there and we use spin cast concrete to line this pipe, and should give us about 100-year service life out of it. Not to pick on metal pipe, this is a concrete pipe with similar defects. We've got longitudinal cracks running all the way down this pipe. There's a large crack in the bottom. We're able to go in there and put in a slip liner, rehab this pipe in place because we've identified that it has a need early on. Now, what this does for us is these two techniques are a lot less disruptive than if we wait for the failure. We're able to have less disruption to trees along the corridor because we're not digging, less disruption to traffic, to neighborhoods. We're able to do things in place. It's a lot simpler process than when we have to go in neighborhoods and try to retrofit, doing the open ditch method. One of the big things about this and one of the benefits of it is what we look at first and foremost is safety, the safety of our citizens. By doing this, we're being proactive. We're preventing pipe failure and preventing potential roadway collapses. We also reduce the potential for flooding due to pipe failure. This allows us to have improved operations. Our conveyance systems are well maintained, less demand on our resources, and we're able to use our crews to go work in other areas of the community. Most importantly, what it assures is that our system is there when it's needed the most, during the storm, when it hits. Our pipes are flowing free and are functioning at their highest potential. The other thing that it does is it supports the pavement initiative that we talked to you about earlier this month. If we can get out in front of the road resurfacing with our pipe repairs, these guys can stay on track, stay on schedule, and we don't slow them down. And lastly, this is a very cost-effective approach in asset management. We can assess these pipes for about $1 a foot. That's about a third of what it used to cost, because as technology improves, the costs drop down than what we used to be able to do several years ago. So this is the direction we're heading. If we wait and these pipes have more severe issues, it generally costs us anywhere from $200 to $500 a foot. So these are savings of 200% to 500% by going through with this approach. So in short, what we're asking for tonight is approval of a contract to supplement and help expedite our pipe inspection and assessment program and these efforts. So thank you.
Thank you very much. Just wanted to mention that I got several months ago the opportunity to see y'all's possum operation. That's the acronym. And I was shown around by Glenn Nix, who was the previous city employee who unfortunately died in a workplace accident at the High Magnetic Field Laboratory. But I saw a number of your employees and the way in which they did their job and the great pride that they had in it, evidenced mostly through my experience with Mr. Nix. So kudos to the work, y'all's innovation, but also to your employees who do this difficult work every day.
Thank you very much. We truly appreciate that.
Commissioner Richardson.
I just wanted to take this opportunity to commend the manager and his staff for what they're doing in this regard. This is, the second time now we've heard about what the city is doing with respect to the oversight and monitoring of our infrastructure system in the city. And I don't think a lot of people appreciate actually that we're on the cutting edge here. I think, we hear, well, since President Obama and now to some degree President Trump talk about the failure of infrastructure across this country and the fact that we have not paid attention in a lot of instances to what our infrastructure needs are. And now it's in the range of billions of dollars to go back and try to retrofit those structures. And yet we're being proactive here in the city of Tallahassee and actually looking at prevention before we get to the stage of collapse in some instances, and that's costing the taxpayers much less money than it would if we waited years from now and there was collapse and erosion and we had to actually replace those structures rather than the repairs and prevention that we're talking about now. And so I just wanted to take this opportunity to, for those that are here, those that are listening on WCOT, to help you understand the significance of what it is we're doing. It takes, I think, a lot of vision and foresight on our part to make this happen now. And so, Mr. Manager, thank you and your staff for what you're doing. And I say that not only on behalf of this commission and city government, but the taxpayers of the city of Tallahassee as well.
Thank you, Commissioner. Commissioner Miller.
Mr. Mayor.
Well, I'd like to move approval, and I would also like to commend you, your amazing staff. And I know it's because you have such an amazing Deputy Director of Underground Utilities and Director of Underground Utilities that makes all of that possible.
Yes, it does. Thank you.
And who would that happen to be?
That old fella? It's a good job.
Commissioners, there is a motion and a second to approve the item. All those in favor, let it be known by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, no. Motion passes unanimously. Thank you very much. Commissioners, we're on item 13.02, City Manager.
Thank you, sir. This agenda item seeks your approval for the second addendum to the interlocal agreement to establish the Economic Vitality Leadership Council.
Move acceptance.
Second.
Second.
There's a motion and a second to approve those nominations, and, good group, by the way, commissioners and staff. All those in favor of the motion, let it be known by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, no. Motion passes unanimously. We're now, Mr. Manager, on item 13.03.
Yes, sir. Staff has received a number of inquiries asking if the city would consider selling the property located at 600 North Monroe. That's the drive-through property. Within the last month, the city received 2 unsolicited offers to purchase the property. One offer has a stated intent to develop a mixed-use project. The second offer has a stated intent to relocate the Envision Credit Union located 2 blocks south of the site. Staff is seeking your direction to determine if now is the time to sell, and if so, under what process that is afforded by city policy. Wayne Tedder is here to provide a brief presentation if you would like.
Commissioner Ziffer.
Yeah, I'm going to go ahead. This is one of those situations where, at least for me, I can't look at it just by itself because it's not just to sell that. There's real opportunity here to do something that we don't have other than, rented condos or townhomes, but real affordable workforce housing for our downtown. So I see an opportunity from an economic development standpoint to, as was mentioned, to tie the two parcels together. In other words, if we sell Envision this, then what we're going to end up with is substantial development on the other side. So I'm going to go ahead and move that we allow staff to negotiate with Envision for the sale of the property and just go ahead and do it now.
I would second that. And the comment that I wanted to add is that this is going to have an impact on so much of Adams Street. And while I appreciate Mr. McAfee's interest and the work that he's put in, it's a hard decision to make, but I think that the project that is going to have the most impact on that area is going to be this particular one. So that's the reason for my second.
There's a motion and a second on the item. Commissioner Maddox.
Two things. One, I wanted to say on the record that I live on Adams Street between those two projects. So I don't think it's a conflict. I'll vote in fact, is it a conflict, Mr. Attorney?
We've dealt with that issue previously, and you're no different than a number, probably in excess of 100 other landowners in that general area and on Adams Street.
So we hear from people all the time that don't want apartment complexes going by where they live. We heard from some tonight. So by voting for this, I'm going to enable 250 apartment units across the street from my house. So I want to point that out. But the question that I had, I was concerned with when this came up the first time, whether there would be parking opportunities there for the governor's mansion and the Carl Collins house and the Grove, which often use overflow parking. So will there be weekend and after hours parking available? Okay, thank you.
Good.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Right. Commissioners, there's a motion and a second. If there are no additional comments, all those in favor, let me know by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed, no. Motion passes unanimously. Commissioners, we're now on item 04, City Manager.
Yes, sir. Commissioners, this item requests your approval of the sale of .87 acres on Macomb Street to the Standard at Tallahassee LLC in the amount of $485,000. The city parcel is one of 11 properties being assembled for a multifamily project fronting Macomb Street. Real Estate Management brought this item before you on March 22nd, and it was continued pending further discussions with the developer and the community. Ben Pingree will provide a brief overview.
Thank you, Mr. Manager. Just one moment, Commissioners. Okay, thank you very much. We do have a pretty thorough presentation for you. I'm going to try and move through it quickly. There is a great deal of information, and it comes on the heels of a great deal of conversation around the Frenchtown community and really around our community. But as the city manager said, underlying this, the core issue is the proposed sale of 0.87 acre city-owned on Macomb Street to the Standard at Tallahassee. All right, so just to highlight kind of, it's good to say grace over where we've been. Starting back in July 2016, I'll go through these pretty quickly, but good for folks in the room as well. City Real Estate Department received an unsolicited offer on that 0.87 acre parcel. This action, of course, triggered an existing city policy on real estate policy number 136. In September 2016, notice of City Commission consideration of the sale was placed in the Democrat and sent by mail to 72 property owners within 500 feet of the parcel. That is the policy. 72 is the number of folks that received it. Only, as is provided in your agenda item, only 2 responses were received at that point in time. In October 2016, the City Commission acted to approve release of the required RFP for the sale, and then in November 2016, the RFP itself for the sale of the parcel was issued by the city. December 2016, the city received 2 submittals in response to the RFP. You see them before you. One was from Neighborhood Medical Center, the amount of $85,000. The second proposal was from Landmark Properties in the amount of $485,000. January 2017, again in accordance with your existing real estate policy, an RFP committee was convened, reviewed the proposals, and chose Landmark Properties. In February 2017, pre-submittal application for development of the entirety of the 400 block, that includes the 1 parcel of the cities in question and 10 other parcels, was received by the Growth Management Department. And for the 2-month period prior to the last time this came before you, February and March 2017, city staff, including your planning department staff, real estate staff, and other staff members, expanded community outreach efforts to garner citizen input and neighborhood input in advance of the development proposal. Bringing you up to speed to date, of course, at your last in your last meeting in March, the City Commission postponed the sale of the property, and the clear direction from this governing body was to go out into the neighborhood and elicit additional input and to provide additional guidance, hopefully move the ball forward a little bit. What you see below on this slide is the impact of that. At a high level, a series of meetings involving a number of neighborhood residents, a number of neighborhood leaders. Those include one-on-ones, those include group meetings. It includes a leadership meeting convened by the city manager to review the opportunity, to hear concerns, and to move the ball forward. And then, of course, on April 19th, your place staff conducted a community-wide meeting. We appreciate all the folks that came out. About 40 people attended and participated in, I thought, a very productive conversation. So let's take a look at what exists on the ground. This is not a raw land environment situation. There are existing uses. This is what exists on the block. That is student housing there. This is the Strong Jones funeral home parcel. You see the domain student housing that's recently been built in the background on the right-hand side. Another shot of the funeral home, I believe, and an additional street shot of student housing complexes that exist. So where are we in terms of the negotiation? Some call it concessions, some call them agreements. First, we have to look at the underlying entitlements. And bluntly, these are what the entitlements correspond to. So on everything but the 0.87 acre, and you see it there, it's zoning CU 45. Bottom line, 236 units and up to 5 stories could be built on the 10 other parcels that are in play and are under contract by Landmark at this point in time. The 0.87 acre, the city parcel that we're speaking about this evening, is part of a PUD, and total permitted units could be 130 units. That's 366 total entitled units that could be built on this site. Significantly, with the input received from the community, with the good work of city staff, and frankly with the ability to negotiate with an active property developer, Landmark in this case, 252 proposed units is where we seek to land this negotiated process at this point in time. Bottom line, that's a net reduction in density below the entitlement amount of 31% that's being agreed to and is being put forward in the form of staff's recommendation. So let's talk about where we are. This is a map that was taken from the Riley Museum, I'm sorry. Boundaries are based on input, historical from the Frenchtown neighborhood, and it sort of sets the boundaries for some additional analysis that we're going to provide here quickly. So this is the zoning that exists today, and when we talk about entitlements and existing land uses, this is the rules of the road as they exist. So what you see here clearly is as you get close to the West Tennessee Street corridor, you have 150 dwelling units per acre due to the zoning category that exists there. You see the PUD, of which the Renaissance Center is a component. as is the acre, the 0.87 acre in question, with the 150 dwelling units per acre that's allowed. You see some density and intensity up the Macomb Street corridor. That was done by design, and you see the existing zoning categories that underlie the land that exists in this heart of historic Frenchtown. The proposed site, I'm just going to walk through a couple of these, 5.08 acres, the two zoning that I just spoke to. You've got it split between CU 45 and the PUD. 5 stories is allowed for the 10 parcels that are under contract adjacent to the city's parcel, and 9 stories is what's allowed on the city's parcel. However, 5 stories is what's being proposed to you, and those will be concessions or agreements, if you will, that we'll discuss momentarily. But just to sort of paint the picture of the entire area, 7 stories again as you get close to West Tennessee. You have 5 stories moving up through the Macomb Street corridor, 3 stories, and then 4 stories in the northwest component of this rendering, and 9 stories within the PUD. Now, we acknowledge that Renaissance is not built to that, but we're speaking about entitlements, not what's on the ground. All right, so neighborhood engagement, clearly this was an underlying focus that was provided to staff at the last time this came before the City Commission. And we want to pause here as we talk about neighborhood engagement and say the following. First and foremost, we absolutely met with neighbors, residents and non-residents, and some interested parties that I believe in full faith and as an honest broker would prefer that no development, neither on the parcel that's in question nor on the block entirety or in its entirety would be sought after at this point. We made a commitment to be honest brokers of that in this forum, and we're happy to do that. Some of the neighborhood input, if we could sort of block it into its sort of the key takeaway points. Okay, if the parcel is sold, this is what concerned citizens want to see. They want respect of the history of the neighborhood, provide for active commercial uses on Macomb Street that are affordable and flexible, safe pedestrian, bicycle, and traffic flow. I know I made a commitment to speak to that as well. Opportunities for minority businesses to be involved and residents of Frenchtown to be involved in the economic vitality that we're seeking here. Continual engagement, put some proceeds back into the community, and look at an overlay of sorts. We'll talk more about that in a moment. So at the last meeting, you've seen these before. This is what Landmark had committed to at the time of the last City Commission meeting. Not insignificant. It was 2,000 square feet of non-residential, 30 feet of designated plaza space from the back of the curb to the building face, allocation of space for a historical display, and the painting of bike lanes. Pleased to report that we've come pretty far from that point. We'll walk through it. First and foremost, we're up to 3,300 square feet of non-residential on Macomb Street that faces into the Frenchtown neighborhood. The provision of a plaza area, including for power connections for pop-up vendor spaces. This is similar to the Better Block that was experienced recently in Frenchtown. Basically for those emerging entrepreneurs that may not have enough wherewithal yet to sell their product in a firm rented space, but want access to the community, this would meet that opportunity. The provision of space and $50,000 committed to the historical display. That display is to be designed with input from the community. Provide bike lanes, scale back the building height. This was discussed, I believe, by Mr. Akbar earlier in his comments. 90 feet is what's provided for or allowable. They've agreed to about 65 feet. No reduction in the agreed purchase price as part of these concessions or agreements. Significantly here, and I do want to pause on this point, there's a lot of good conversation about ensuring that access to economic opportunity and vitality was included. While it is not mandated, the developer has agreed to adhering to the aspirational goal for minority participation. at 7.5%, working closely with the Office of Economic Vitality, turning over documents so we can ascertain how they've actually performed. They're willing to hold job fairs with us, do advertising, and allow us to engage in monitoring as they go about completing their project. This is a draft of the actual site plan. Site plan review and approval will be the next step should the commission decide to go forward with the sale. At a high level, I just wanted to highlight that the plaza, on this screen, the dotted red line that goes from top to bottom is the break of where the other parcels end and where the city's parcel begins. What you see here is that the developer, in paying the price that they committed to early on, is giving 33% back to the public domain of the 0.87 acre as part of this concession. If you add in the non-residential, that's a total of 41% of the space that is being given back by the developer to public utilization by the developer. I would like to highlight that we acknowledge fully that should you not move forward with the sale, there is opportunities to sell the property and have it developed in the future. However, we would be remiss to not point out at this point in time that certain things that would have to be accommodated for and accounted for in any future development, namely stormwater and parking, are able to be accommodated elsewhere on site through the economy of scale with this project. So some additional considerations. This is part of the multimodal transportation district. You see the goals and strategies of our multimodal district in incentivizing and focusing on infill, supporting cycling and walking, overcar use, bus transit, wide sidewalks, and safety. And bottom line, safety for pedestrians, bicyclists, motorists alike, and we believe that's achieved through what we've been putting forward. We do want to focus on placemaking. I know there's been a consideration of Frenchtown in 50 or an overlay district. We've had success, as you know, commissioners, with placemaking. 4 completed plans have already been done in the Lake Jackson, the Market District, Midtown, and South Monroe Adams areas. These are the critical first step for planning, I think, that would ultimately potentially lead to the achievement of much of what we've heard in the community. It is a process that is engaged with significant public input. It is intended to nail down and identify the community's values and visions. It takes usually about a year to do, and it becomes a living document with measurable objectives and specific action items. It involves community charrettes, stakeholder interviews, large and small group meetings, website survey. You see all of this before you, but the bottom line for those in this audience is this is a very iterative process that closely works with the community. And what does it lead to? Bottom line, this is what it could lead to. And this is what it has led to in other areas. Infrastructure improvements, that can be a very logical outcome. Design standards, public art, community events, and even up to comp plan amendment recommendations or zoning revisions. In a cart and horse, this is the horse before the cart. Anything on that bottom bullet must be done with extreme diligence and caution. Huge implications there, and we look forward to having those conversations. So just a little bit for the benefit of those in the public of where placemaking has shown a difference. This is an example of how placemaking has modified infrastructure. In this case, it's on Palmer Avenue. You see a before placemaking, and then after placemaking, the investments made by your local government, you see the outcome. Events and promotion, design guideline and standards that can be utilized within an area. And to be clear, staff is recommending that that be brought forward and approved by the City Commission here today. This would be the timeline for the placemaking study to start, to be engaged in full force, and to be brought back to you. So I want to pause just for a moment on economic impact because it's quite significant. As you probably are aware, we partner with FSU and their Center for Economic Forecasts and Analysis to independently analyze large-scale projects such as this to get a bottom-line figure as to what the benefit, what the construction benefit, what the economic benefit can be for projects. These are the raw numbers. We're happy to report them out. This construction project is estimated to have a $106 million impact, creating 813 direct, indirect, and induced jobs, $33.1 million in employee compensation. You see the permanent impacts, 15 permanent jobs, $500,000, just under, I believe, in employee compensation moving forward on an annual basis. And then the fiscal impacts for sales taxes in particular. But I do want to highlight, if you look at the estimated construction amount that's going to go towards this project between $50 and $70 million, you're looking at $1 million to $1.3 million annual impact estimated total property taxes. By way of comparison, Commissioners, all 11 parcels pay in $32,000 currently. For example, currently this block pays $11,000 in per year to support school, to the school board, to support children's education. We believe that estimate would increase to $342,000 to nearly $500,000. I think I'm going to pause here. I'm almost done with my presentation. I really do appreciate the additional time, Mr. Manager. We were going to pause here briefly. I know that the developer had a few elevations that the community had asked for that she was going to present, so you could actually get a visual feeling for what this development would look like if
Commissioners, anyone need, if we could take a couple of minutes to do that.
Okay, and then I have one slide after.
Good evening, Commissioners. Vanette Godelia with the law firm Hopping Green & Sams here at 119 South Monroe Street, Suite 300. I am here on behalf of Landmark Properties. I have with me Mr. Andrew Costas in the audience, who's also with Landmark. We appreciate your staff's commitment over the past several months in working on this project, and most significantly over the past month. Since our last meeting, they have been working hard to coordinate these meetings with the neighborhood. More significantly, we appreciate the participation of the Frenchtown residents who came to multiple meetings. Ben outlined those meetings for you, but those were meetings with us. That doesn't even include the meetings that they had to kind of get to their own consensus in what they felt was appropriate for this project. They were forthright with their concerns. They were honest. We appreciated that, and regardless of the outcome of the decision today, we were able to gain an appreciation of each other through the process, and I think that's important. So this is a property sale request. Can we develop a project without this parcel? Yes, I think Ben's already spoken to you about the fact that we have contracts on the remainder of this block. However, the project we would develop on the remainder of the block is not the Class A project we can deliver if we own this last piece. So ultimately, we have been at the table with these negotiations because it's a benefit to us in what we can deliver, and I think ultimately to the Tallahassee community in Frenchtown in what we ultimately will put on the ground. So let's turn to this first rendering here. Sometimes a picture is much more helpful than any words. You'll see to the left, that's the Renaissance existing structure, and the building to the right is what the standard would look like. And I know scale was an issue, and here I think you can see that the view shed looking north on Tennessee Street and then to the parking garage that's right there off Tennessee for FSU is a consistent scale. I know sometimes seeing the images out of context creates the potential for misinterpretation, but I think this shows that the project would fit in with the surrounding area. Yeah. To the right of the screen, the standards project, you'll see the first floor right there at the corner of Carolina and Macomb would be the non-residential portion, and so you'll see it's basically skims both sides. I'll go to one more slide. You can see right there, again, the non-residential component of the project. Again, you can see the scale. You can see that, in fact, this project will align quite well with the Renaissance across the street. That's a shot looking north, going on Macomb Street basically the corner of, I think that is Virginia and Macomb. The plaza space we'll talk about in just a minute here. So I know that when you talk about 30 feet from back of curb or front of curb to the building, you can't really get an image of what that is. And so that's the equivalent of 3 lanes of traffic. If you went on Tennessee Street, that's 6 lanes. So 3 lanes heading north or south, that's how much space that plaza will be. It could fit 3 lanes of traffic in there. So it's pretty significant. And that, again, as been discussed, is responsive to what we heard the community say they wanted. I think I'll leave it on that slide there. So as you're aware, these commitments have been made with no renegotiation of the offer to purchase the property at top dollar. We're comfortable that, judged by any standard, what you've seen from Landmark Properties is a strong commitment to the city and this community. We look forward to being good neighbors, and we thank you for your time and your attention this evening.
Great. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Just about finished, commissioners. What's up? Slide. Okay, so this brings us to the end of our presentation. We would like to, I would like to pause at this moment to thank this commission for its direction, and City Manager, Assistant City Manager Tedder for their direction and good guidance, and truly for the neighborhood and the good folks that we met with throughout this process who expressed their opinions and added their voice to what you have before you. We believe we have incorporated that in the best extent possible into these recommendations, and this is what's before you. We're here to answer any questions you may have, and thank you for the little extra time to provide this update.
Thank you very much. Commissioners, any questions, comments? Commissioner Miller.
Well, first of all, I really appreciate everyone who's been involved in this and all the input that's come, all the organizing, all of the meetings, and all the time that all of you have spent to come to see us, to talk with within yourselves, and also to talk with the staff and the developer. Everyone has really worked hard and shown a commitment to trying to do what is very best for the neighborhood in the context of this project. I would like to move option 1, option 3, and option 4 with the caveat, 2 caveats. Number 1 is that the $485,000 be designated for reinvestment in Frenchtown. I could list it 10 ways, but I'll spare that for you. The other thing is that we strongly encourage reaching the aspirational goal of 7.5% minority business involvement. I stopped short of requiring it because I think that the commitment is there, and I really think the developer's done a lot to show that they really do feel that they want this to be a partnership. So that is my motion.
There's a motion. Commissioner, is there a second? I'm sorry.
I'll second that.
That's a second. Commissioner Ziffer?
I have a question, though, and it has to do with the $485,000. I have no issue whatsoever of designated to Frenchtown, but I think perhaps at a future meeting come back with some recommendations on how that is spent. In other words, by what criteria, who decides where it goes, because I think that's important, because...
Can I respond to that?
It may be part of it, yet you certainly can. So that's important to me. And I have a question. It was a visual that just struck me. So I'm seconding your motion just with a clarification on that. Are we going to put the utility, there's some utility poles there. What are we doing with all that? In other words, in Palmer Avenue, we put it underground. This is one of those opportunities where clearly it's going to be a whole block, and we've got some really ugly utility poles there. What are we doing with all that?
Commissioners, we're doing everything we can to put those underground where we can. So it's something that we have to do in order to get streetscape. The utilities lines have to go underground, and that's really important in this area. And so we're working diligently right now with the appropriate staff to make that happen.
Okay. And the other thing, just as a follow-up, it has to do with the 7.5%. I would like our Office of Economic Vitality in some way to monitor that. And it's not that I don't trust the developer. I want to follow it. That's a lot of money that could be spent for local minority businesses, so I think that's important for us to be able to follow. And like I said, it's not a lack of trust, it's just a matter of monitoring and making sure that it happens.
Commissioner Miller.
Well, I would like to just offer some explanation about that, because before I made that motion, I actually thought about what this should go to, but I did spend the morning with the Frenchtown redevelopment plan from 2000. This is very aspirational, and it was very optimistic about the return, but putting that aside, there were a lot of suggestions in here, including improvements to lighting. And what you said, that's something we've discussed on Brevard and Macomb for years, and that's one thing that we could move forward with. The pop-up kiosks, we've talked about the fact that they're going to put electrical, but maybe we could go ahead and put permanent kiosks in. Bus shelters, anything around the Frenchtown hub that needs to be done that has not been paid for. There's some opportunity there. This is a gateway to Frenchtown, and we've talked for years about what that should look like, and the residents have expressed an interest in establishing some sort of gateway. This could help to pay for that sooner than later. Restriping the crosswalks to make it possible to have a more walkable area there, and also and as you just brought up, undergrounding the electrical, not just in front of this property, but potentially all the way up to Brevard Street.
Mr. Mayor, on point.
Yes, sir.
And the other thing I'd like to say while I have the microphone thing before I yield is that I really would like to be the lead commissioner on this. I've spent a lot of time and built up some relationships in Frenchtown over the last 6 years, and it's a planning exercise. So I would look forward to the challenge.
That'd be good with me. On point, Mr. Mayor.
Yes, sir.
Commissioner Miller, all those things you suggested are appropriate, but I would defer, if we could, to the group as we move through this, because clearly these are recommendations that need to come from the actual folks that it's going to benefit.
And that's why I didn't want to make it part of the motion.
The other thing is, and I don't know how we do this, but this particular site, I think one of the things where we followed city commission policy, but I think it's where we fell down, and that was the 500-foot notification zone. Because of where that particular parcel was situated, a lot of that was commercial property on Tennessee Street, and it was the pond, and it was Renaissance Center. And right now, for me, if anything happens in Frenchtown, if we could expand that to maybe 1,000 feet or something, because I think if they had gone further, there would have been a lot more people engaged at a lot earlier time, and this room would probably not be as let's say, aggressive as I'm looking on some people's faces, because they would have had a chance earlier to speak. So if we can expand that, I think that's important to do. 500 feet in some situations just is not enough.
Commissioner Richardson, followed by Commissioner Maddox.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. And that was one of the points that I was going to make, and I have made before. It has bothered me since I've been on this commission that almost month after month, we have neighborhoods from throughout this community having to come before this commission because they find out a lot of times, either real or perceived, that at the last minute there is development being proposed for their neighborhood that they didn't know anything about or had no input in. And so there's got to be a better way forward. We've got to develop a process that includes as much of what Ben has recommended here. For Frenchtown, we have got to have a process moving forward that includes as many of the residents impacted either directly or indirectly as possible. That may be expanding the radius for notification of those proposed developments and seeking that input early on, but there has got to be a better way forward, Mr. Manager, if you and your staff could work on that and how we can engage these neighborhoods early on when there is development. When there is development proposed that would encroach on those very well-established neighborhoods where people have invested in their properties, they've raised families, In many instances, they've decided to retire, and they can't move. And so I think it would be more fair to them and their families if we had a process that created an environment where we're working with them and the developer, because they have a role in this as well, a very important role, and much like what has been proposed here by Ben in his presentation. So if we could begin to work towards that more inclusive process and how we move forward, I would certainly be interested in that, and I hope the rest of us would as well. I again want to thank all of those that have been involved in this process, the proponents and the opponents. This has been a very emotionally charged, if you will, issue. For me, it has a lot of personal significance, and I've talked about that in earlier meetings. My family's history with Frenchtown, I see some eyes rolling, but it's true. And I care about Frenchtown, but not just Frenchtown, all of the neighborhoods in this community. I want to see them protected and preserved. But growth and development is going to occur. But we have to control how that growth and development occurs. It can't be roughshod and shoved down anybody's throat. They've got to be involved in that process, and it's got to be growth and development that's compatible with the neighborhood. Frenchtown has a very special place in this community. You know, I had a meeting with some folk the other day, and the question I asked them is, what Frenchtown are you talking about? Are you talking about the Frenchtown from 40, 50 years ago? Are you talking the current Frenchtown? What is it we want to preserve and protect about Frenchtown? And so we've got to come to some, and I'm hoping that through, again, this placemaking process, that we come to some consensus about what it is we want to preserve about Frenchtown, because it has changed. There's no doubt that it has changed over the years. There has been development. There is gentrification occurring in Frenchtown as we know it now. And so we have to realize those realities going forward. With this particular project, I've been on board with it from the beginning. I certainly do appreciate the fact that many of the issues I raised at the last commission meeting have been addressed. The minority business participation, creating jobs for indigenous residents where that's possible, earmarking the $485,000 sale price to redevelopment and revitalization of the Frenchtown area that's been neglected over the years, and Commissioner Miller has outlined, I think, what are some good beginning points. I would also add some housing rehabilitation to that so that we can preserve the existing housing stock in the area, and people can maintain their homes that live there now and won't be forced out. So we've got a lot of work to do going forward. I think we've outlined a process. Again, I want to thank the developer and all of those that were involved, the community leaders, Keith Bowers, Attorney Akbar, and all of the others, Jim Bellamy, and all of the others that have been involved in that process over this last month to make this a better project and to make it more compatible with the neighborhood. I think we've come to something that most, if not all of us, can agree on. I think the agreements that have been made are certainly almost above and beyond what I've ever seen or heard a developer offer. And you know, in most instances, you know, it would have been, okay, keep your 0.87 acres. We're going to go on with our development and build it like we want to build it, given the fact that we own the property and it's zoned for what we want to do. So I commend them for that. And I hope, again, that that is incorporated in the process going forward, that everybody comes to the table and is willing to give and take and negotiate to make these developments happen. And I guess what Ben has recommended, and Mr. Byrd, you tell me if I'm wrong, or if we need to add something, that the Frenchtown and 50 is incorporated in the placemaking that Ben has talked about, or kind of starts to get us there. And we can talk, you don't have to answer that now, it's rhetorical right now. But I think that this will be a benefit to the Frenchtown area. It helps us build the population density that we need to help increase. Because, you know, if you look at it, we've had commercial space in that area for 17 years now on the bottom floor of the Renaissance, and none has come. And that could be for a variety of reasons. But I think we have an opportunity now to encourage that kind of commercial development with all of the other residential development that we're seeing beginning to happen in the Frenchtown area. So I am in favor of the project as it's been presented tonight, and think we ought to move forward with this, again, with the notion that generally we will develop a process going forward that does include more people and early on in this process as this community grows, as we know that it will, not only in Frenchtown, but throughout this community, as we have to grow as the capital of the state of Florida and a thriving city going forward. So those are my comments, Mr. Mayor, and like I said, I'm going to vote in favor of this item tonight.
Great. Thank you, Commissioner. Commissioner Maddox.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Commissioners, you'll remember that at the last meeting, I came off my deathbed with the flu to vote against this project. And I think because the commission decided to defer it, we have a much better project today. So I'm glad that the community came together, the developer came with open arms, and we have a better project today. I just wanted to mention on the dollars going back into Frenchtown, I'm all in favor of that. I know I would prefer we have the conversation as to what that goes to in the budget, but I would tell you that my preference, having been part of, with my friend Charles Billings, part of the Frenchtown plan of 2000 and being cognizant of the one in the 80s, I don't want those dollars to go into another plan, another document to sit on a shelf. I'd like to see lighting or parks or underground utilities or, something of those. With that, I support the motion.
Great. Thank you, Commissioner. I will not add much except to express appreciation to all the stakeholders who've been a part of this process. I'm particularly very, very proud to see, and I guess sort of like Commissioner Miller, but maybe not, I would prefer to see the 7.5 mandatory, but I have faith that we will keep close track of it. And I also want to compliment Darrell Jones at the city, the neighborhood, as well as the developer, and obviously the Office of Environmental, Economic Vitality. That was an important agreement, and I'm glad to see it in there. I'm also extremely proud to see the 2 job fairs, the intention to recruit talent and workforce from the area most impacted by the agreement. Huge agreement for the 480, and align with your comments, Commissioner Maddox, around its use. I actually think we ought to be being dictated to by the neighborhood in that process what that use is. I think that's part of the purpose of the whole charrette and the placemaking component. With that, Commissioners, we have a motion and a second to approve the item with the amendments as discussed.
One other thing, Mr. Mayor, I know that Commissioner Miller has asked to be the lead commissioner on this, and I don't have a problem with that, but what I would like, because of all of my other responsibilities, I am certainly not in a position to take that on as an additional task, but I certainly would like to be her alternate or have some involvement in this going forward because of my personal history and my family's personal history with Frenchtown and the interest that I have in making sure that this project moves forward.
Got it. We'll note that as part of option 4. Commissioners, there's a motion and a second. All those in favor, let it be known by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed, no. Motion passes unanimously. Thank you, Commissioners. We're going to be on recess until 6. Thank you. Gives us just enough time to have a meal. Quick 15 minutes. back to order, and we'll commence with public hearings. City Attorney.
We're on item 1501. It's ordinance number 17-0-02. This is the first and only public hearing. The title of this ordinance is an ordinance of the City of Tallahassee, Florida, amending Chapter 6 of the Charter of the City of Tallahassee to annex within the corporate area of the City of Tallahassee, Florida. Upon adoption of this ordinance, property being situated in Leon County in accordance with the voluntary annexation provisions of Section 171.044 Florida statutes.
Move the item, excuse me.
There's a motion and a second for approval. This is the first and only. All those in favor, let it be known by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed, no. Motion passes 3-0.
Item number 15.02 is ordinance number 17-0-09. It's the first and only public hearing of an ordinance entitled, an ordinance of the City of Tallahassee, Florida, amending Section 20-170 of the Code of General Ordinances of the City of Tallahassee, relating to trespass towing prohibitions, penalties, prohibiting towing for specified period from alcoholic beverage establishment, removing criminal penalties, providing for conflict and severability.
Mayor, we have a number of speakers on this item.
Okay. Please.
The first will be Mike Goldstein, followed by Max Hurley.
It's Mike Goldstein, 3416 Clifton Drive. Thank you to Mr. Manager, Mayor, and Commissioners. Guess we'll not wait for Scott. He's kind of occupied, I guess. But again, hey guys, been a while.
Hey, Mike.
Just want to come out and support Commissioner Ziffer's amendment. It's a great idea and a great cause. It works in other cities, and there's really no reason not to at this point, because with that prime time of towing, that's our students that might take their life at that point. You don't want to have a risk of taking a chance of either their car or causing harm to themselves. You also want to really have that area of being able to be safe, and that's what this all comes down to, is public safety, and don't drink and drive, and really want to be out there and not make that choice that could be your last choice at that point. And yeah, if there's a way to get around at that point, I know a guy to help get them home safe, and can't really get them out in the morning, but I think that's a great way to really help with the initiatives and all that, and it's really a good amendment that I think is working in everyone's favor at that point, and just seems like a great thing to have for the city, as everything, we're kind of catching up to other people too, and it seems like a great way to, I mean, you don't want to have a bar tab cost less than your car towing ticket. That just seems like a bad idea. They're already pissed off enough after they're done at the bar. If they want to go home and see their car's missing and have to pay X amount, that's way more than their bar tab. That seems like a loss at that point too. So just want to come out and show my support today. Thank you,
Mike. Appreciate it. Next speaker.
Next is Max Hurley, and following Mr. Hurley will be Chester Murray.
Max Hurley, 117 South Gadsden Street. I represent the Tallahassee Bar and Hospitality Association. We just now began to look over this ordinance because there was no point when the policy was being created that anyone from the city of Tallahassee reached out to any bar that I can tell. I checked with over a dozen bars and no one had heard anything about this. That being said, here we are now. So I'd like to talk about some of the conditions that bars do tow. But first I'll say that no bar in Tallahassee is a member of my association tows roam towing at all, period. However, there are 3 conditions that we do tow. And the first is when you block a dumpster. It usually costs about $100 to get the city to come out and clear the dumpster, so under those conditions we do tow. Also, when arrests happen, occasionally people are arrested at clubs, and then we, as a courtesy, tow their car because typically they'll have a trespassing warning and they won't be able to come back. So we tow their car in those instances. And also cars that are abandoned on the properties, we do tow in those situations as well. Knowing that, we should celebrate that no bars in Tallahassee tow and do roam towing. I'd like to call attention to the part about the sign requirements. I don't know where this came from. I guess it's part of the Tampa ordinance. I'm concerned with the wording of know your rights. To me, that sounds a bit like a class action lawsuit advertisement. I would suggest something more positive that is potentially something like, Tallahassee supports safe driving. You are safe to park in this parking lot with the same hours and language. In addition, remember that this is now a cost that the bars are having to incur. You might look at a property like Cabos, which is in a larger strip mall area. They have what they call curb cuts. They have 30 curb cuts entrances, and by this ordinance they would have to have a sign for every single one of those. I think the message would be a bit redundant at some point. So I think that this is a good intentioned ordinance here. Commissioner Ziffer, I applaud you for recognizing that none of the bars in Tallahassee do roam tow, and we look forward to continuing that. And thank you for bringing this issue up.
Thank you. Next speaker.
Chester Murray, then Ron Mowry.
Hello, I'm Chester Murray. I own Professional Parking Service, 2233 Lake Bradford Road. I'd like to come out against the ordinance for a couple of reasons. Some of the language in it needs to be clarified about exactly why we are removing vehicles. Primarily, we do not tow cars that are left there overnight unless they're put in an area in the landscaping, they're blocking a dumpster, otherwise impeding egress in and out of the property. And we would like some language put into the ordinance about that before we make just a broad-based sweep of don't tow anything after 2 a.m. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir.
Next speaker.
Ron Mowry, and then Elizabeth Wilson.
Okay.
Good evening, Commissioners, and thank you for allowing me to speak. I'm here. I'm an attorney. My office is 515 North Adams Street. I've been in Tallahassee for a long time. I've served as county attorney in Wakulla for 30 years, so I have a little bit of idea how you adopt ordinances and try to get to where you want to go. I'm here on behalf tonight of Professional Parking Services, Ability Towing, Hopkirk Enterprises and Towing, and American Eagle. They're a highly regulated industry, both at the state and the city level. There are a lot of regulations and ordinances, and I suggest we meet as we need to and discuss different issues that come up. They meet regularly with representatives of TPD, as you know, is required in your ordinance, and do their best to respond to any and all complaints that may come up for any reason. When we first saw this, just before your last meeting, and it was suggested we get with the city attorney and try to work it out. So we got with the city attorney and made some suggestions, and some we fixed, some typos we fixed. And then we suggested, for example, your ordinance originally said that it would be in effect from 2 a.m. until 10 a.m. the next day, and you didn't mean that. You meant from 2 a.m. to 10 a.m. the same day. That's one day. So we began to look at the rest of it, and then we, as was suggested, met with TPD and a number of other people in a meeting last week, and we all discussed, and we understood. We came out with a joint recommendation, and that was very clear, not to change the ordinance, but to clarify. And did you pass those out? Okay. Yeah. You'll see, and that language just was discussed just the way it's written, and recommended and agreed to by TPD, who supported it. And all we've done is, and I'll just tell you about it instead of reading it. It says if you were on in a establishment serving alcohol on the premises, and you get drunk, and it says you're going to make a conscious decision, or you're going to knowingly do something. I don't know how you do that, but suppose you do, and you want to leave your car there from 2 a.m. until 10. Then it says you can not be towed unless the owner goes out and individually signs an invoice or direction that you do individual cars. But that doesn't happen. And more importantly, as a rule, these companies do not roam tow around bars during that period of time. They don't do that. Our suggestion was, though, to make it legal and not inconsistent with your other ordinances in state law, that it should say, if that person at the bar that's drinking parks in a designated on-site parking place properly. Your ordinance doesn't say that. It just says, just parked there. No, you've got to be parked on the premises in a designated proper spot. And for example, we went on to say, well, what does that mean? Well, it said it means designated legal parking space on the premises. And that's what you say it's for.
Excuse me, that's 3 minutes.
That excludes parking on curbs, blocking access to dumpsters, fire hydrants, handicap parking, landscape driveways, emergency access points. I don't think you ever intended that. Thank you, sir. One more quick point, and that is that if you're there, at 4 o'clock and you park in front of a dumpster, and at 2 a.m. you're too drunk to drive, your car can't be towed. That's what you're doing. If you don't put this in a proper designated place, then I can park between 2 a.m. with impunity anywhere and it's not illegal. That's what's wrong with it, and I don't think it's enforceable. So
Thank you very much.
Sir.
Thank you very much for your comments. Next speaker.
Next speaker is Elizabeth Wilson, and she is the final speaker on this particular item.
Hello, Elizabeth Wilson, 1650 Airport Drive. Good afternoon, Commissioners. I come here in full support on this amendment on behalf of Florida State Student Body Government Association. The pilot program for this amendment had been successful in reducing drinking and driving, and we thank you for protecting the community and our students by continuing this. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. I appreciate it. Commissioners, that was the...
If I could make a couple of comments for discussion. First of all, the language that is before you to amend it is straight from the Tampa ordinance. We specifically talked with the folks in the Tampa Attorney's Office. All the issues raised by the speakers tonight have not been an issue that could not be worked out with the same language. The language, know your rights, that's directly from the Tampa ordinance. So there may be obviously some individual situations that have to be worked out between the police and the bar owners and the towing folks, but I think they can certainly be done under the existing language. We're concerned that if we keep modifying or changing that, we're going to essentially do away with the good that we think this ordinance, this amendment to this ordinance will bring. And how effective and how many situations it avoid, we don't know. Tampa doesn't know. But as the attorney in Tampa who dealt with this told me, if it saves one life, you've done the right thing. So.
Thank you for that, City Attorney. City Commissioner Ziffer.
I want to reinforce what the city attorney said, and that is, it's not perfect, and if we need to come back and tweak it later, I think we can do that. My problem is if we start to throw a lot of things in there, what's going to happen is a car is going to get towed, and when somebody goes to pick it up, they're going to say, well, your car was 1 inch over a yellow line. Guess what? Your car's getting towed. Well, I don't think it was over the yellow line. Well, it was over the yellow line because that goes on now. And I'm sorry, I think we should follow the same process that Tampa did. It's been effective down there. If we have specific cases where the police department comes to us and says, you need to alter this because we've got some issues with it, that's fine. We can certainly do that. The other thing is I will tell you that there is interest in what we're doing around the state. The Tampa TV stations have already called. In fact, I talked to them. They're waiting to find out what we're doing because this is a train that is going on around the state, because if we can reduce the incidents or an opportunity for somebody to harm themselves or others, and it doesn't really affect anyone else, we should do that. And so I'm going to be very supportive of us moving forward to this with the idea that if our police chief comes back to us in a month and says there are issues, we'll deal with it. I recognize that. But I think we should do that. So I'm going to make a motion to move forward with it.
There's a motion. Is there a second?
Second.
Commissioner Miller, there's a second. Commissioner Maddox.
First, I want to thank Commissioner Ziffer for bringing this forward. Especially, we already seen in College Town that perhaps it's making a difference. So I appreciate very much doing that. I get your point as to the curbs or yellow lines, but what is the harm of adding in language for blocking dumpsters, parking in a handicap spot without a permit or egress?
We can certainly, if you desire, Commissioner, to add the language and talk about a marked parking space instead of just parking anywhere. And then, obviously, nothing in front of a dumpster is going to be marked as a parking space. that will marked by either yellow lines or the curb provisions that specifically mark spaces.
So on a city street, where you have a yellow curb, it's on a city street, right? And no one can tow from a city street unless a city police officer calls it in, correct?
Correct.
So I would just think that I can understand not wanting to block your dumpster, your ingress or egress, you know, common sense, fire hydrant, handicap parking.
I can understand the handicap parking, I can understand a blocked dumpster, and I can understand parking at entrances. But I will tell you, I am concerned about the concept of parking in a designated spot. Because let's say somebody has driven there and they already are intoxicated, and they have parked in two places and it's 2 a.m. I don't want them getting back in a car, and they're going to be penalized for doing the right thing at that point. And so I don't mind adding something to the effect regarding dumpsters and entrances and egresses and handicap. But anything else, let's see where we go with that.
Would you accept that as a friendly amendment to?
And a fire hydrant, sure.
Would you accept as a friendly amendment the dumpsters, fire hydrants, ingress and egress, and handicap
Yes.
parking?
I would only state that the ingress and egress is already covered in the ordinance.
Okay.
If it's blocking operation or ingress or egress, it's already covered by the ordinance.
Can you help me out with, Mr. Hurley brought up the issue regarding the signs and like a Cabo's having to put a sign at every entryway in that whole shopping center. Is that accurate?
I don't think it's accurate. I only say that because currently state law requires the placement of a sign, and this only requires the placement of a sign where those signs are placed.
Okay.
So I don't think now we currently have signs at every entrance in that plaza.
As long as that's not the case. I don't want to put any undue hardship on any
Right.
restaurant or bar.
Great. Other questions, Commissioners? Commissioner Richardson.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I guess the only other thing that comes to mind for me, I mean, would it be burdensome on the person or whoever is taking that person home if they've got a ride to inform the bar owner or the bar management that the car is going to be left there?
What if you take Uber? What if you walk? I mean, I think we're adding things that dilute it to the point where there are going to be so many exceptions it just goes away. I mean, the 4 exceptions up to this point I think make sense, but those, well, like I said, Commissioner, there's an opportunity for us if we need to fix it later, we can. But right now, we're coming up with things that I'm not sure we have to deal with.
Well, I mean, I think they're legitimate to discuss and to deal with. I mean, because we want everybody to be bought into it. And so we certainly want to have input from those business owners. I mean, they're impacted by this. It's their property, although I understand what it is we're trying to address, but we certainly want to hear their input and where we can include it in any ordinance rather than, you know, waiting a month or 6 months from now to have to come back and go through the whole ordinance amendment process. So, I mean, it's good for the discussion. And I think that the amendment that Commissioner Maddox has proposed is, to me, it's sensical, because you wouldn't want somebody parked in front of a fire hydrant or in a handicapped parking space, and then they'd be able to leave that car there until 10 o'clock the next morning, and you absolutely can't touch it. So I would certainly support that amendment. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Commissioner. There appear to be no further questions or comments. There's a motion with amendments on the floor, and I assume we are able to proceed to start advertising any of those amendments. All those in favor of the motion, let it be known by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed, no. Motion passes unanimously. Commissioners, we're now at item 15.03. City Attorney.
15.03 is ordinance number 17-0-10AA. It's an ordinance, City of Tallahassee, Florida, amending Chapter 4, Animals of the Code of General Ordinances, establishing a city animal abuser registry, providing for definitions, providing for the establishment of an abuser registry, providing for registration requirements, providing for a registry for animal shelters, pet sellers, private citizens, or others to voluntarily consult before selling, transferring, or otherwise conveying an animal to an individual.
We have one speaker on this item, Mayor. Lauren Perlman. And she's the only speaker on this item, and any remaining speakers I have, Mayor, are for unagended items, so the remainder of the public hearings do not have speakers.
My name is Lauren Perlman, 6349 Fitz Lane, Tallahassee, Florida, 32311. Good evening, Mayor, Commissioners, and City Manager. I wanted to start by thanking Commissioner Maddox and the Animal Crimes Task Force for looking at the issue of animal cruelty here in the community with a holistic approach and combating that step by step. I wanted to support the Animal Abuser Registry as one of the many pieces to help to put an end to animal cruelty here. As a foster, I have fostered animals that have been part of cruelty investigation, so I've seen firsthand some of these horrific situations, and I think that it's going to be a very big help to give visibility to the shelters, to rescues, to citizens in our community that are rehoming pets. It'll give them one more tool to help ensure that they end up in a safe home. Just a quick thank you again for all of your continued efforts to make Tallahassee animal friendly and animal safe for this community. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Commissioner Maddox.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I want to thank some folks that worked so hard on this. Ashley Edwards has done a fantastic job. Where's Ashley? Thank you so much. And Erica Lexington, Jeff Doyle, Kristen McRae with the City Attorney's Office done a fantastic job. Lauren Perlman, Jane Parsons, thank you for caring about this. Kate McFall as well, who was at our last meeting. So I don't know if you recently saw in the paper that we just made another arrest with animal cruelty in a horrific circumstance. And these crimes are not new. They're just now being prosecuted. This has been going on a long time. So we have had animals that have been abused and people that have abused them. We have had people that abuse animals that went on to abuse children or domestic violence or commit capital crimes. This community is going to be a leader in the state of Florida by stepping up and saying we are going to put an end to animal cruelty in the city of Tallahassee. So we start from, we educated the public, if they see something, to say something, if they see animal abuse, to speak out about it. Then we educated our law enforcement officers, both at the Leon County Sheriff's Office and the Tallahassee Police Department, to know how to deal with animal cruelty when they see it or they're called to a case. Then we work with our animal control folks, the county animal control folks, to help make a case that will stick and make an arrest where it is warranted. Then we work with the state attorney's office to ensure that it doesn't fall through the cracks as it goes through the prosecutorial process, the state attorney being the final decision maker as to whether or not a case is brought forward. Then we worked with Ralph DeMeo, who's done a great job, and his group to educate the judiciary so they understand the tools that are available to them in sentencing when a case comes before them dealing with animal cruelty. This is the final piece. And the final piece is to ensure that people that are cruel to animals and abuse animals, that we do everything within our power to ensure that they never get an animal again. So if you have a litter of puppies that you wish to give away to responsible pet owners, you can check a registry and see if the person that is asking you about that puppy has abused animals in the past. Our own animal shelter can check that registry. Veterinarians, that people are bringing in dogs that you know, everybody knows how I love bulldogs, that have wounds that look like they occur during fights and consistent fighting, can check the registry to see if this person has a history. It is a bold step for our city. We'll be the first in the state of Florida as a city to enact this, but I think it says a lot about Tallahassee and who we are as a community. I move the item.
Second.
There's a motion and a second. Commissioner Ziffer.
Just a quick thank you for those of you that came today to be supportive, but also Commissioner Maddox for your, I was about to say dogged, but I just did, didn't I? Efforts when it comes to the protection of animals is very much appreciated, on at least from my standpoint. So thank you very much for bringing this, and I'm looking forward to voting for it.
Thank you, sir.
Hear, hear. Commissioners, there is a motion and a second. All those in favor, let it be known by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed, no. Motion passes unanimously. Thank you, Commissioner. We're now on to item 15.04.
15.04 is ordinance number 17-0-11. It's the first of two public hearings. The second public hearing will be scheduled for May 24th, 2017 at 6 p.m. in these chambers at City Hall in the city of Tallahassee. The title of this ordinance is an ordinance of the city of Tallahassee, Florida, amending Chapter 10 of the Tallahassee Land Development Code, repealing moratorium concerning cannabis dispensaries and medical marijuana treatment centers, imposing regulations on medical marijuana dispensing facilities, and providing for effective date.
No speakers.
Commissioners, there are no speakers. There is a motion. Is there a motion?
First of two.
I'm sorry. This is the first of two, Commissioners. Pardon me.
Okay, right.
Maybe the legislature will be done by then.
Maybe.
Hope springs eternal.
That's right. Commissioners, there are no public speakers, and we have one more public hearing on the item. Item 15.05.
15.05 is ordinance number 17-0-17. It's the first and only public hearing, and the title is an ordinance of the city of Tallahassee, Florida, amending section 14-2.335 and 14-2.435 of the Code of General Ordinances of the city of Tallahassee relating to discontinuation of general employees' drop pension contribution.
No speakers.
Move approval. Second.
Commissioners, there's a motion and a second to approve.
Could I need to add something to this?
Yes, Commissioner Miller.
My husband is on drop, and I thought it was important for me to ask the city attorney if I had a conflict. And basically, he says, since my spouse is one of 223 current drop participants under the existing case, my spouse is not receiving a special benefit, and accordingly, I do not have a conflict of interest and should vote on this item.
Thank you, Commissioner. There's a motion and a second. Commissioners, all those in favor, let it be known by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed? Motion passes unanimously. Item 15.06.
15.06 is ordinance number 17-Z-05. It's the first and only public hearing. The title of the ordinance is an ordinance of the city of Tallahassee, Florida, designated and including additional territory as and in residential preservation 1 with historical preservation overlay on the official zoning map of the city of Tallahassee adopted and established by the city commission.
No speakers.
Is there a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Commissioners, there's a motion and a second to approve. No questions or comments. All those in favor of the item, let it be known by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed, no. Motion passes unanimously. Thank you, Commissioners. Thank you, City Attorney. Commissioners, we're now at the point of the meeting of hearing from speakers on non-agenda items. Treasurer Clerk, are there any speakers?
We do have speakers, Mayor. The first is Frank Willis. Frank Willis. Not seeing Mr. Willis, then Elizabeth Robertson. Elizabeth Robertson. We have one other, which is Walter Gregulak. And as he approaches, I'll let him know, as with the other portions of our meeting, speakers have 3 minutes for their remarks, and I'll give you a heads up when that 3 minutes has expired. And Mr. Mayor, when he's completed, I'll call those two names one more time, and then we'll be completed.
Great, thank you. Yes, sir.
Thank you for the opportunity. I've been a city utility customer since March 1st, 1991. We built a home, we needed utilities, we came to the utility department, and we've had an account in good standing for 26 plus years. Due to some personal issues in my house, I requested the utility department to change the name of the account from Marlene Gregulak to Walt Gregulak. The money is on auto pay. I pay my bill electronically every month. It comes out of my checking account. Call the utility department. Can't do it. It'll be $160. Get nowhere on the telephone. Go down to the utility department. Same answer. It'll be $160. I think it's a little absurd. Government does a lot of things right, but it doesn't do everything right. I'd like a waiver on this. All I want to do is change the first name on the account from Marlene Gregulac to Walt Gregulac. Take somebody in the utility department less than 10 seconds to do that, and it doesn't need to be charged $160 to do that. I'd like a call back in a perfect world by 8:15, 8:30 tomorrow morning, telling me this is done. I believe the city manager might have it in his power to have a short conversation with the director of utilities and let's take care of the problem. No outside consultants, no studies. Let's just get to the root of it. I'd be glad to provide my Social Security card.
Don't do that now.
passport,
Don't do that
driver's
now.
license.
We got a guy right here that can fix it.
Mr. Manager, can you have someone explain to us what the process is and why that fee is necessary?
Please.
I sure will.
I'm interested because I'm in the same situation in my household.
Are you?
The account is in my wife's name, but it comes out of my account.
As it should.
Her name is different than mine.
If it's for you, it's $300. No, we'll get you an answer, but sir, if you would speak to Reese Go, we could get this done. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
I would like some clarification. Is there?
I think the manager said he's going to bring something back.
We'll get you something. Send you an email or
Okay. You'll give us
update.
an update. Thank you.
Thank you, commissioners. Thank you, city manager. Thank you, Reese. Any other speakers?
Last call for Frank Willis, Elizabeth Robertson. No further speakers.
Okay, city attorney, I think the protocol is if, I think we voted on the Willis Dairy at the last meeting that we had. Is that right?
Yes.
That's correct.
So this would be the first meeting following that meeting of the full city commission. Is that correct?
I'm not absolutely sure. I think that's correct.
If, I believe it is appropriate in Robert's Rules of Order if I could have my vote reflected as being with the majority. I voted for and the against prevailed.
Okay.
If
It was a 3-2 vote, as I recall, Mayor, and the motion was to deny the zoning and land use map change. And so we can reflect that you vote with the 3, so it's 4-1.
Thank you.
Oh, you've changed your vote?
I did.
Okay.
I'll flag that I'd like to then have this item brought back up for reconsideration at the next meeting.
Well, this is the next meeting.
What he's saying, he's now on the prevailing side, and as on the prevailing side, he can bring it up for reconsideration under Robert's Rules of Orders. So he could bring it up either at this meeting or a next meeting.
I want to do it for the next meeting. I thought that the applicants would be here. I'd like for the commission to hear their case. So I want to reserve the option to reconsider the item. Okay. Commissioners, we're now in sharing of ideas. Commissioner Maddox, followed by Commissioner Miller, followed by Commissioner Ziffer.
I have two things. The first one is, this past weekend, the City of Tallahassee Electric Utility Department competed in the 17th Annual Florida Lineman Competition in Lakeland. The competition is coordinated by FMEA, the Florida Municipal Electric Association, and it is a rigorous contest to demonstrate the varied skills of electric line workers. Participants are judged on skill, efficiency, and safety while performing typical line worker tasks. After 5 grueling events and beating out other teams from across the state, our team won the overall Journeyman Winners Cup. We're extremely proud of our men and women that work in the electric department.
Here, here.
I just want to say thank you to them. My second item is, today is Administrative Assistance, Professional Administrative Assistance Day. And our aides do so much for us up here. And I wanted to publicly thank my aide, and I'm sure that y'all want to thank your aides. But I can tell you that the animal abuse ordinance that we just passed would not have happened without Allie Mercer Fleming. So thank you so much for your work on that.
Thank you.
Here, here. Thank you, Commissioner. That was Commissioner Miller, followed by Commissioner Ziffer.
First of all, I'd like to have all of our aides please stand so that everybody can see all these. Go ahead, stand up. I mean, it's all about not attention. Well, we certainly do appreciate you guys, and it's too bad I didn't know about this earlier.
Jamie must have got a promotion. He didn't stand
Flowers or
up.
something.
Hey.
I'm not sure.
Thank you.
He's worthy. I mean, I don't know.
Well, and speaking of aides, tomorrow is Bring Your Daughter to Work Day. So if you all take the advantage of that opportunity, they are allowed to miss school to come and see what their moms and their dads do. So I hope all of you are, my daughter doesn't want to come to work with me, so I'm going to bring my granddaughter. So just be prepared that she will be here running around looking at what each of you do, as a matter of fact.
Here, here. Commissioner.
I have a couple of things. The first is it's a logistics issue with the trolley. Rode the trolley the other day to Midtown to have lunch, and it was pointed out to me that I guess the trolley's trying to stay on time. They stop some places and they just sit. And so it seems to me, and it's a logistical question, is there any particular reason why we just can't have the trolleys moving?
I don't see why we would.
So-
It might be nice if they sit for a minute or two so people can, because I have, in my experience, run across the street from where I was. When I saw them, I said, time to go.
I know there's a
run
need.
out of there.
Yeah, I know there's a need once it's there to wait a couple minutes, but if it's like ahead of schedule by 10 minutes just to sit there and wait 10 minutes, so perhaps we could look at that.
We'll get you something.
Okay.
I do think we want to make sure the reliability is there, which a lot of people want to hold us accountable for making sure that if it says it's going to be there on the 15th, that we got one.
Okay, so the next thing is now I have something to pass out that I want just to have some consideration to think about and to hopefully give some approval today. The KCCI initiative this year is to push the hashtag #IHeartTally. And they're going to be doing different things around the city. But they came and met with me and had an idea that actually I had thrown out several years ago and nothing ever happened with it. So I'm going to bring it back up again. And some art was supplied to me by Cosby Hayes. Cosby, stand up. Cosby supplied this art. We have in our city this amazing location that so many of our visitors drive under every day. They drive under it at a fairly slow pace. It's visible to them. It's visible to everybody that works in this building, and yet it sits. And it's a great opportunity to be some type of billboard that in this case could show the #IHeartTally. So here it is. I'm going to pass it out, and I'm going to pass a bunch that way. And I'll pass a bunch that way. And it's the entrance to Clayman Plaza from behind City Hall, above where the road goes underneath into the parking lot. There is a huge space that is just this big, brown, unused wall. So I'm going to ask us to go ahead and give approval. I know the request is also, which I'm going to help to try to find paint donated. We have, I guess, a scissor lift of some kind to help with getting the height. This is not permanent, right?
Why not?
Well, because a year from now, we may want something else up there. They may have a different design. But I just think this speaks, once again, it says to our community, art lives here. It's important to us. This is where everybody that visits the Capitol, most of them park. And I think that we should try to push this hashtag more, and this is a good place to start. So I'm asking for commission approval to have them come up with, let's say, a game plan of how we accomplish this, and have KCCI start to do their thing.
Love the idea. Love the idea. There's a motion and a second. Thank you for the idea. All those in favor, let it be known by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, no. It's done. Well done.
Good job.
Commissioners, just a quick on the, first on the Administrative Professionals Day. I know we've got a lot of aides, obviously, that we are appreciative to, but City Manager, there are administrative folks that work all throughout this government who do an incredible job on behalf of the people of our community. Oftentimes, they're the front line. They get to hear the worst and the best, and they have to drive with it in the most professional manner, reflective of this government. And so, obviously, on behalf of this commission, we want to extend deep appreciation throughout the organization for all of our administrative professionals. Secondly, it's longest table time again. We are gearing up for our in-home version of the longest table, and we'll be looking for, I know a couple of us hosted meals last year. I want to encourage us to consider that again, the partnership, city, county, Village Square, Chamber, all those folks have been working real diligently to make this year's event a success. They have selected Sunday, June 11th, supper time, 5:30 p.m. for the next longest table in-home and restaurant throughout community events. And we'll be kicking off the recruitment effort to solicit folks to register their households and to hopefully agree to hosting meals. So wanted to put on everyone's radar, Sunday, June 11th at 5:30 will be the next iteration of the longest table.
Mr. Mayor?
Yes, sir.
One of the things that I wanted to mention, and this is just in the discussion stages at this point, but it's kind of in keeping with what KCCI is doing. I had a conversation recently with Christique Henry, who, as you all know, is active in the Appalachia Ridge neighborhood and president of CAN. And one of the things that she and I talked about was that wonderful canvas of a wall that stretches for quite a distance along Orange Avenue, and the possibility of bringing the community together. And I understand it's a city-owned wall, so, Mr. Manager, you'll have to let us know what we have to do to get permission to do this. But what we wanted to do is envision that as a community canvas, that we can bring the community together and actually do something with that wall that's standing there that separates Appalachia Ridge from the rest of the world, if you will. And so my office is going to be working with Christique to help spearhead that. And of course, we'll need partners, and any ideas that anyone has, we'll be welcome to entertain those.
Awesome. Thank you for that, Commissioner.
Yeah.
Commissioners, if there are no further items to come before the commission, we'll stand on adjournment. Thank you.
Thank you all.
Thank you.